Marcel, it sounds like you keep banging something.
Oh, I thought I was muted.
No. Or maybe somebody was. I don't know who was banging. Let me know when we should start.
You should start.
Hi, everybody. This is Soul Level Astrologer Mark Borax with the Cosmic Weather Report live for Tuesday, November 19th, 2019. And I'm talking about dark rejuvenating currents on the edge of Scorpio as today's subject. Now, I note that Mars entered Scorpio just after midnight East Coast time, and Mercury's been in Scorpio for about 7 weeks, and the sun's been moving through Scorpio as it does every year at this time for the last 27 days. So it has about 3 days left of Scorpio. And between the ages of 8 and 12, we all move through the sign of Scorpio. That period for me was pretty amazing and magical. I remember specifically at 9 years old, I was living in a colonial house in Stratford, Connecticut that was built before the Civil War, and it had secret passageways in it that would lead from one room of the house to a whole other part of the house. And one of my favorite things to do then was to go into the secret passageway with my cat and my comic books and a flashlight, and I would just sit there and read, and nobody knew where I was, and I really liked it that way. But I remember also that magical scorpionic period of the years between 8 and 12 as delivering a revelation to me. And the revelation was that the adults in my life, my teachers, my neighbors, and my parents are pretending to be something other than who they really are. And it hit me on a gut level with the, with the impossible wisdom of a 9-year-old child, that I knew that I was a magical being. I knew that I was made of magic. And I knew that life was magical. But I saw that the life that my parents and the parents of friends and the parents of my neighboring school kids and the teachers had somehow forgotten that. They were not living magical lives. They were not being who they were. It was as if department store mannequins, to put it in a kind of a New York, Connecticut mode, in the early 1960s, it was like mannequins had taken over. And why wasn't everybody being who they really were? And this hit me on a gut level at one of the most magical years of my life. It turns out of my entire life. In my entire life, I've had a couple of peak years, like age 9. I've had a few of those peaks, and along with the magic was this deep, scorpionic, gut level revelation that adults have forgotten who they are, and they're busy trying to be something else. And I sat in this secret passageway in between the hallway and the far back room of the attic in my old colonial house. And I thought this through. And what I came up with was, well, then that must mean that something happens between the age that I'm at, which was 9 years old, where I know fully that I'm a magical being, and the age that they're all at. They must have started out magical. They must have started out alive inside. They must have started out knowing that life is so much more than they apparently are acting out now. And it made me contemplate, well, then what happens? What is it that happens between the fully alive, deep gut level, extraordinary, magical experience of being a child and the dampened down, tuned out, turned off, numbed over masquerade at being a common adult in this world? And I couldn't figure out exactly what happened, though I sensed it had something to do with money. But what I could do was make a promise. I made a vow to myself that no matter how old I ever get, I will never, ever forget the magic of what it is to be alive at this moment. That was my sacred, secret vow that I never divulged to anyone until a deep therapy session I was in with a therapist on Whidbey Island around 1993. I had forgotten that promise until that therapy session. I made that vow at age 9, and probably by 11, I'd forgotten it. Certainly by the time I was 15, and I started making love and smoking pot and being a political radical and hitchhiking from Connecticut to California, surely by all those times I had forgotten that vow, and went through my teens, 20s, 30s, and 40s until that therapy session in 1993, when I remembered it. I remembered how I was sitting in that tunnel, in that secret passageway in the bowels of my old colonial house, swearing that no matter how old I get, I will never forget the magic. And I hadn't. I'd forgotten the vow, but I'd never forgotten the magic. I'd lived a magical life. I wasn't one of these guys who goes to college to become something he's not and makes a bunch of money and then has to wake up and realize there's this whole other world. I never left the whole other world. I stayed in it. Scorpio is the deepest inner truth, the collective truth of what humanity is experiencing, that lives in a place many levels below collective consciousness, which is busy keeping itself occupied on the surface. Collective consciousness is easily fooled. Scorpionic consciousness is never fooled, not on a gut level, on the inside. And even though I'm not a Scorpio, my 4 planets in Scorpio tuned in during those Scorpio years. Like I said, everyone, regardless of what sign you are, everyone goes through Scorpio between the ages of 8 and 12. And we each have all 12 signs in us in some unique blend. And in those Scorpio years, my 4 Scorpio planets had a revelation that ended up subconsciously powering my entire life because I followed my own star. And that deep gut level recognition of what humanity is experiencing, what the collective is denying and disowning, the projected, denied, disowned shadow of our species that you can see dramatized by politicians who have become psychopaths. I think most national politicians are psychopaths. The disowned shadow you can see in the so-called leaders of our time who have gotten severely twisted up and either have completely lost the ability to tell right from wrong or else fully know they're doing wrong and don't give a shit. It's one or the other. There is no other choice. The so-called politicians and leaders of our time either fully know that they're doing wrong and don't give a shit, or they've totally lost the ability to tell right from wrong. But deeper than that disowned shadow, especially the disowned shadow of the patriarchy, of the modern men in power, doesn't evaporate from the earth. It trickles down into an underground reservoir that we can call Scorpio. Scorpio does not have the luxury of building a life way up on the surface of collective consciousness. Scorpio is saturated with all the shit and compost and disowned emotional truths that everyone else has put down, let go of, ignored. All of that psychic emotive content funnels down, streams down. The psychic emotive disowned content of billions of people floods through a reservoir named Scorpio. And that deep, dark content contains the strongest regenerative currents that can be found anywhere. The greatest zodiac sign of love is Scorpio. There is no more loving sign if you can get down to its core, because the core of Scorpio is the part of human beings that has suffered and weathered many violations, many deaths, many rapes, and still has the capacity to resurrect even more strongly and full of love. That is the gift of Scorpio. I'm not saying that every Scorpio masters this with impeccability. I'm not saying that the Scorpio part of every human being masters this with impeccability, but that's where it lies. In the Scorpio in all of us lies the ability to weather severe anguish in life after life through the reincarnational cycle and still burn up that experience and regenerate it with this force of love that deeply obsesses with resurrection, that we can die to what we've gone through and we can be born to a more loving, truthful, evolved, powerful, undaunted version of ourselves. That's the love of Scorpio. And it was my love at 9 years old for my own existence, which I experienced as magical that year and terrifying. Magical because I awoke my consciousness awoke, I had what the later version of me would call a Kundalini rising. My inner life force burst out of that little 9-year-old body in Connecticut in that darkened tunnel between secret passageways. And it woke up and realized it's amazing to be me. I, I am me. I am me. And if you take something as simple and shamanic as I am the me that I am, and you play it over and over again, it activates this deep force of soul in you. I was gobsmacked by my own existence. And immediately following that was that, oh my God, why doesn't everybody else know this? Or if they do know it, why aren't they acting like it? Mostly, especially the adults. And I realized that this revelation was equal parts miraculous and devastating. Because think it through. If most of the world's adults have lost touch with the miraculous miracle of being alive, then I'm about to be taught and guided and led by a species that has lost its magic. And that's devastating. There were no adults in my world at that time that I could fully trust for that, except maybe like that odd teacher who let me go visit her on weekends and stop by her house with my bicycle and play chess and would maybe deliver a few truths that were kind of soft pedaled to be palatable for the 9-year-old version of me. You know, I had those little events and occurrences where some of the magic leaked out from under the mask of the adults. But that miraculous revelation that I'm made of magic and so are we all, and I'm alive and so are we all, went hand in hand with the devastating counter revelation then I can't let them teach me anything because they're going to pollute me. They're going to give me truths that eat my magic. They're going to give me the non-magical version of how to grow up and become a man and handle my responsibilities. So I must have, though I don't consciously ever remember this, I must have made the agreement with myself that I'm the only one I can trust. And that was a powerful crossroads of life at age 9, because it was true. I was the only one I could trust, but it began a kind of non-trusting, armored, antisocial version of the masculine in Stratford, Connecticut, where there was a lot of bigotry, a lot of sexism, a lot of crass consciousness. I kind of armored myself rather than trusting the people around me. And I listened to people, but there was always this factor, this X factor that I added in, which was, oh, that's because they're devoid of magic. That's why they see it that way. That's why the school is trying to get me to conform to being just like everybody else, because they don't realize what life really is. And you imagine that's kind of a cocky little 9-year-old kid, you know, to have that hubris, to think that I knew more than all of them, gave me an early rite of passage that I really wasn't ready for, but actually turned out to be true in the long run, because I did know more than them. because we are made of magic, and love is at the core of it all. And to get to the scorpionic resurrective core, to get to those regenerative currents on the edge of Scorpio, which we're at right now. We are at the edge of Scorpio because Mars just entered Scorpio, because the sun has 3 days left of Scorpio, because Mercury's been moving through Scorpio for 7 weeks. But even more on a core level, we're at the edge of Scorpio because our species can no longer continue to exist without owning its shadow. We have to face the brutal impact of what it's cost to create a world without love, a world without magic, a world without truth, and to be dominated instead by these pseudo people, these zombie politicians, these invasion of the body snatchers, pod people who took over the halls of government and education. And we have to take back our power from them. And the primal way to do that is to own your truth, whatever it is. My little premature 9-year-old truth was so powerful that I branded it into my soul with a branding iron of 9-year-old scorpionic truth that actually turns out to be the exact same as my 65-year-old truth. It's the same truth. We need to be the magical beings of love and truth that we are, and turn around that disowned shadow. So here at the edge of Scorpio, by the current planets that are moving through Scorpio, but by our culture, which has deep resurrective power that it never gets to until the final moment, the scorpionic dramatization. We're at that point. Our species is dying of falsehood. We have a cancer. The human organism is attacking itself, which is what happens with cancer. Our species has become saturated with its self-destructive urge, and deeper than the self-destructive urge is the regenerative urge. But you can't have full access to the regenerative part of Scorpio until you sink deeply down into the disowned shadow. You have to look at the part of yourself that you're least capable of seeing. You have to go into the part of the species that you can't stand, down beneath the part of yourself that you can't stand, the thing that you're holding against yourself, your most wounded part, your ugliest part, the part of yourself that turns out to be, after all you said how you're never going to be like your parents, the part of yourself that turns out to be like your parents. You have to look at that part with eyes of love and compassion and brutal honesty. Like Ernest Hemingway said, becoming a writer is easy. All you need is a built-in shock-proof shit detector. And if we were to expand Hemingway's comment to fit becoming a true human being, which is the Sufis' expression, a true human being. There goes a true human being. And that's what I was sensing at age 9 in Stratford, Connecticut, that these are not true human beings anymore. They're out of truth. And we need a built-in shock-proof shit detector to turn the disowned shadow of our time, the scorpionic cesspool of our time, the rich nutrient compost of the manure at the base of the family tree, the genealogy, the gene pool, the scum lining the bottom of the gene pool. That's our food. We have to eat that. We have to turn that around. We have to swallow how false we've been to produce love, just like fruit trees grow out of shit. Fruit trees don't grow out of air. Fruit trees don't grow out of grass. They grow out of the fertilized loam, the deep, rotten, stinky compost that creates life, that creates love. And that's the love of Scorpio. And unlike the love of most of the other signs, it goes deep down into the taproot and becomes unbudgeable. Okay, Marcella, do you want to open up the discussion?
Sure. So for anyone that wants to make a comment or ask a question, you can either raise your hand and I can unmute you, or you can go ahead and unmute yourself and weave yourself into the conversation. We often like to give Scorpios or whoever the sign is that we're working with the first chance at it, but I guess we're not really focused on that right now. Let's see. I'm not seeing any hands up, Mark. I'm not sure.
Cynthia raised her hand. Are you able to see that?
Oh, now I see it. Yep. Okay. All right, Cynthia, you are now unmuted.
Except she might have muted herself. You still might need to unmute yourself, Cynthia.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Cynthia. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and I just want to say how brilliant that was. I really enjoyed it. I'm a Scorpio moon, so I can relate and understand what you're saying. And, your analogy of how you've been through it all. And I'm right in the midst of relating with somebody, and it's like, just speak your truth. What are you feeling? Just tell me. Nobody's right or wrong here. And I can't get the person to open up. Absolutely can't get them to open up. And it's like, I'm not afraid. I don't care what it is. Whatever you have to say, I want to hear it. I don't know. Does that make sense?
That makes the most sense. That is one of the most sensible things I've ever heard in my life. And it's so sensible that it's hidden in plain sight, because the need to speak your truth without blame or judgment is the healing antidote for the pod people zombies that have taken over the halls of power. It's just speak your truth. I'm not sure what your truth is. I might not even actually like your truth once I hear it, but God, do I need you to speak it?
Yes.
And
yes.
that breaks the taboo. We have gotten muzzled. We have gotten muzzled. And what's most gotten muzzled is the inner truth of human beings, that there's no place for it because you got to put on a suit and do your job. And what Cynthia is bringing in from Arizona here today is the beautiful, simple antidote to a twisted world who has lost the ability to tell right from wrong.
Yeah. And I just want to say too, that I feel if the person would speak their truth, it also gives me a choice. Not knowing what their truth is, all I can do is consider myself in the equation. And so I kind of have to remove myself from the equation. But if you tell me your truth, now we have two people in the equation, and I have, several choices. So I think people don't really understand, but it's kind of selfish to not speak your truth. Does that make sense?
That's right. It is selfish, because you're not giving the other person the benefit of the doubt that they can handle your truth and that they want your truth.
Yeah.
And it's a magic power. It's the magic power of, I'm here and I see you. And that doesn't sound earth-shaking or advanced or like something you'd have to climb to the top of the Tibetan mountains in order to gain from a wise man or a wise woman, but it is because I'm here and I see you is the square root of all human interaction. There is no deeper root. There is no prime number or common denominator of relationship than I am here and I see you, because the I am here part is acknowledging my own existence. I, in my imperfect human form, am here. I'm really here and I see you. And you don't necessarily have to verbally state this to the person you're dealing with, but if that's your nonverbal intention, if that's the place you're coming from, you are operating in honest fidelity. Your vibration increases to a scorpionic truthfulness, because that's absolutely truthful. I am here. I am the only person who can make myself here, and I am. I want to be here in this moment. And I see you because I'm not the only one here. That's different than I'm here and I'm going to fix you. I'm here and I'm going to judge you. I'm here going to make everything better. I'm here and I see you. And when you practice that, it becomes a magical art. It becomes a magical incantation. It conjures an equivalent response from the depths of the other person, if such a thing is possible, and they're not so locked into the game that they can't even respond that way.
Oh, I like that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cynthia, for bringing the Scorpio Moon Arizona version into today's
You're
call.
welcome.
Anyone else like to share?
Mark, I don't know how to raise my hand. I don't know.
Okay, your hand's up. Just talk.
So with my sun in Taurus, Scorpio is my shadow. This is the first year where I actually prepared for it a bit. But the question is, well, one, I want to just thank you for saying out loud that the species can't continue to exist without owning its own shadow. It's just a great relief to hear that from how I've observed the state of humanity for my whole life. Just to hear another person say that is a great relief.
You're welcome.
I guess, you know, the patterns that I revisit in Scorpio, fortunately a bit different this year. Unlike other cycles, I seem to struggle to illuminate them. It's like I'm in the midst of them. With other things, I can find an angle for insight more readily. But when the sun is going through Scorpio, I tend to just really struggle to find an angle for what is the truth, or what, you know, what's the next level of my learning with this pattern? What's the insight?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have a comment on that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for Speaking Your Truth series. Thank you. It's just incredibly beautiful and healing for me to sit and hear people's raw truths, whatever they are. You know, that's what I've made a living at for 33 years. I sit and I listen to people's truths. And it restores a truth vibration into the room, into the air currents. Even before offering you some insight, you expressing it begins to heal the very thing you're addressing, because I invite unconditional acceptance for what you've gone through. I treat you as the magical being that you are, who's having this limited earth experience, and is so much more than the limited part of it. So that scorpionic difficulty that you're addressing usually has to do with the fact that to feel that much anything has become a threat to modern society, to modern culture. Just to feel that much. The bulk of what you're feeling in the Scorpio parts of you have been tabooed. You're not allowed to. You're not supposed to. And so kids who go to school and have trouble concentrating on the blackboard are sent to therapists who give them drugs to prevent them from experiencing either the super high part of their nature or the super deep part. And we become a nation of bell curved people. Mm-hmm. Your highest cosmic ayahuascan lysergic dreams are evaporated, and your deepest roots, scorpionic gut level are evaporated, and you're left in between, because then the class can be taught and everybody can memorize the dates that Columbus came and raped the New World. And so, first of all, just even speaking your truth of whatever it is that you're struggling with restores a vibration of the human circle is big enough and real enough and resurrectable enough to deal with intense truths that come, because you are not the only one with intense truths. And once the taboo is dissolved against feeling what you feel, the Scorpio parts of you are going to get busy doing what they love to do best, which is resurrect in the very place where the old death needs to occur. So what I'm interpreting, series, is that there's a part of you that is saturated with not being permitted to fully live your truth, have your truth, own your truth, know your truth, share your truth, make love to your truth. And that part of you needs to die. And the pre-death stage of it is the impossibility of kind of continuing on a certain way. And that's the sign that part of you is bloated, is saturated with anti-truth, non-truth. And if you can recognize that a mercy killing is in order, where you have to learn how to assassinate the part of you that has gotten fed up with not being able to live her truth, so that this deeper part of you can be born, then you're getting the dark rejuvenating currents on the edge of Scorpio, and not even on the edge, but in the bottom of Scorpio. Mm-hmm. Does that resonate?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else want to share anything? And I know, Marcella, we don't have a way for the people following on Facebook, so I don't get to see Facebook while I do this. So I know some of you out there may be saying, me. And I can't even see you. So I don't think we have any way to bring those people in.
Yeah, it's hard for me to do the back and forth with the technology smoothly. So sometimes if people post stuff, I can weave it in. But right now there isn't anything really specific that I can weave in from the Facebook scroll that I just did.
That's okay too. Then I can pick it up and continue.
Yeah.
Okay. So dark rejuvenating currents on the edge of Scorpio. Thank God there's one sign who operates through obsessiveness. Scorpio is obsession. Scorpio is not, let's be reasonable, let's calm down. Do you really want to tear all your clothes off and run through the marketplace like St. Francis? And thank God for people like St. Francis who follow their obsession. And because there's a love underneath obsession. There's a love in caring that much to passionately want, passionate wanting. Scorpio is deep, deep desire. And what I love about scorpionic deep desire is that it honors the physical plane rather than treats the physical plane as this penalty we have to go through for all souls who tried to get to nirvana but ended up in New Jersey. You know, Scorpio is, yeah, I want to make love. Oh my God, do I want to make love? I really want to make love. And Scorpio is, oh, I want to eat that food. Oh my God, I cannot wait to sink my teeth into that food. You know, it's like an organic feast at an Indian restaurant with mango lassi. You know, it's just the dripping goddess. You know, it's the soma of existence, the depth of death and birth and orgasm. And the gift of Scorpio is that when we come that alive on such a core level, we lose our fear of death. Because the only people that are afraid of dying are the ones who haven't fully come alive yet. Once you fully come alive, you lose fear of dying. Every moment you're dying and being born. And United States culture completely misunderstands the two things that Scorpio are about, which is sex and death. We blow it. We blow it on both ends. We don't understand sex and we fear death. Talking about death and dying is not considered polite, and especially when somebody's dying, be really super nice to them. Stop being honest to them. The Scorpio in me, it gets infuriated at this idea that you have to protect the dying from truths just because they're dying, as if they're weak when they're dying and they can't handle truth. And so if we reclaim the honor and deeper, profound truths in death and dying and in sex and desire, we will dissolve the taboo against Scorpio and our species will begin resurrecting from those deep transformative currents. Thank you for joining me today with the CWR Live on Tuesday, November 19th, 2019. This is Soul Level Astrologer Mark Borax on top of Putney Mountain, Vermont in the snow with the dark, rejuvenating currents on the edge of Scorpio. Until we meet again, may each obsolete part of you graciously die so that your deeper, fuller nature can resurrect.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. That was brilliant. Loved it.
You're welcome. Aloha.
Bye, everyone.
Great nuggets. Hmm.